Well, what's the crack? And welcome back to the Proud Crack podcast with me, Damien McCall, pronouns he, him, proud Irishman here to share life stories to hopefully inspire you with your allyship in the world. We've had a wonderful response to the first two mini-series of the podcast with Newry Pride and Power Friend. And today I'm here with Bernie, who you're going to hear all about in a moment, representing Outcomers for this third mini-series of podcast. So thanks again to everybody who's listened. If this is your first time listening or watching, you can catch us on the Spotify and also on YouTube. You just have to search Proud Crack. As Spotify has now been putting up videos of people, I also do audio or visual descriptors. So I know a lot of people listen to the podcasts in different ways, and that's completely up to you. But if you're listening and not looking, it'd be helpful to give you a visualization of what the video looks like. So as I said, my name's Damien. I am wearing a Navy t-shirt today. And my t-shirt is emblazoned saying, I'm proud to be a friend of Dorothy. Now, there's a reason it says that. There's a couple of reasons it says that. But it's probably what you're guessing what it is. So it's navy and it's got white font with loads of kind of rainbow colors and sparkles behind it. So I think this is a great chance then to introduce you to our guest, who's going to tell you who they are and also give you a visual description as well. So, hello, who are you and what's the crack?
Hello, my name is Bernadine Quinn. Bernie, I'm called. I'm from Dundalk, and I'm the manager of Outcomers, which is an LGBT community centre based in Dundalk, but with a remit to cover the northeast of Ireland. So that would be like Loudmead, Cavan, and Monaghan, and the border area, around Newry and Crosswood Glen, Fork Hill, South Armagh, places like that.
Great.
So the crack is good. I have to say, I'm delighted to be here. Really thrilled to be part of the podcast, and looking forward to our chat. And a wee descriptor about me. I'm a 61-year-old old dyke, and I'm not wearing a T-shirt that says "Proud to be a friend of Dorothy." But I remember a few years ago, a crowd of us on a trip to Australia, and we took a boat trip to see some crocodiles. And the first crocodile we met was Dorothy. And I was thinking, we're all grand, so we're all friends of Dorothy. We won't be eaten by her. But so I'm just wearing a plain black boring T-shirt that says there's a dyke inside this T-shirt.
Well, I can show you, viewers, she's anything but boring. I thought what would be good then, Bernie, was to give people an idea of how this came about. And why you're sat here today. And I thought it was a good link to what I said at the start about the first podcast being about Newry Pride, because that's where I met you the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to tell our viewers and listeners how you were involved in Newry Pride this year?
Well, this year the guys from Newry Pride asked us. We've been friends and allies of Newry Pride for many years, and as a matter of fact, we were involved in the development of the NRC when the group first started all those years ago. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the people who went to that group came here first, and we'll definitely talk about that as we go on. But the reason why I was at Newry Pride this year, it was really to talk about the far right and the things that had been going on and the link between Dundalk and Newry and being LGBT and Pride and the challenges that we are facing in this new reality for us as LGBT people, I think.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Bernie. Yeah, because I went to that event. It was a Pride in Politics or Politics panel event for Pride. I was in Bellini's in Newry, and it was leading up to Newry Pride itself. And I found it fascinating because who were the other people that were on the panel with you?
There was two politicians. There was a Sinn Féin politician and an MLA. Was there?
There was an alliance, like
Alliance
SDLP. People for profit, I think, as well.
Oh yeah, lovely guy.
Yeah, so loads of people on it, and it was fascinating. And you're right. Unfortunately, there was a lot of content to talk about because there's a lot going on at the minute. But I was first introduced to then, and I was really intrigued about Outcomers because if I'm honest, I've lived away from Ireland, 20 odd years. and I hadn't heard of Outcomers, and it's because I haven't been living here for that time. But I moved away to kind of like be myself, so I couldn't come out in Newry back then. And I've lived in Manchester and Edinburgh and Glasgow, and they kind of have big scenes, and there's a lot of the community to be involved around. But when I moved back to Newry, it's invisible was my experience of it. I've since then fallen in with the Newry Pride team and the Sapphic Society, and I've been going to loads of different social events and met lovely people like yourself and the Outcomers team down here, and realize the community is there. I just don't think people are aware of it. And I'm hoping that people will hear about all the amazing work that you do and your team, because as I'm finding out about it, it's wonderful. So I'm excited to talk about it as well. So yeah, so I'm glad the crack's good for a start.
Crack is good. Good and Cricklewood.
And we're actually having the crack here in Outcomers down in Dundalk. So I think that's a nice place to start off. Would you mind telling us a bit of background as to how Outcomers came about?
Yeah. Well, Outcomers initially started as Outcomers Drogheda. And I saw an advertisement back in 1994, 95 for an LGBT group. Saw it in a local newspaper in a kind of a little personal ads, and it said there was an LGBT group meeting in Drogheda in the Resource Centre for the Unemployed on North Quay in Drogheda. I remember it very clearly. And I thought, I'm going to go up to this and see what's going on. It was just after the decriminalisation of homosexuality. So that was 93.
Was that north or south of the border?
North. Or south, sorry, south of the border.
South of the border.
So that happened in 1993. And the interesting thing about it was that most of the LGBT groups around Ireland, with the exception of Outhouse and maybe one other one, I'm not, the GCN, the Gay Community News, most of the other organisations started around that time after the decriminalisation because, well, like the Equal Status Act and the Employment Equality Act were hugely important back then, because the Employment Equality Act came in the Republic of Ireland, and it meant for the first time that you couldn't be fired for being gay. So that was hugely important. That meant you were free to come out and work. Back then I worked in a factory, and it was, I don't think that I ever was in, because I think I was too obvious. So I was pretty obvious that I was lesbian for a long, long time. But now you were able to verbalize it. You're going to be able to say it and not be fired. And then the Equal Status Act came in, meaning that we were entitled to the same treatment as heterosexual people, because at that time, you could be refused, you could be out, but you could be refused food in a restaurant because you could be refused service in a bar because you were gay. You could be refused a room in a hotel, you and your same-sex partner. You could be refused a room in a B&B. All of those things really happened. So the Equal Status Act meant that couldn't happen anymore, that we had to be treated the same as our heterosexual peers.
And that was only about 30 years ago or so?
Yeah, that was 2000s, in the early 2000s or late 1990s.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Equal Status Act and the Employment Equality Act were hugely important. And it just made LGBT people safer. And then the decriminalisation of homosexuality on top of that meant that we now could, initially, the guys in Drogheda went looking for a place to rent to have an LGBT meeting. And so they were facilitated through the Resource Centre for the Unemployed in Drogheda. And local newspapers took our advertisement, and we were able to apply for small bits of funding. And we had a Pride back in 1995. We had the first ever Pride in Louth, between Drogheda and Dundalk. And so there was little bits of funding coming through, nothing like we see now, but like maybe £100 to have some kind of an event on, or a talk, or these kind of things. So I remember going to the group in Drogheda back then and going into the room that night, and the room full.
Wow.
And a huge number of the people that were in the room were from Dundalk.
Great.
And it was kind of this, I always knew about you. I always knew about you. Did you know about me? I knew you'd be here, this kind of thing. And it was very interesting. And the people who lived here, who you had your suspicions about, and all our suspicions were confirmed, I suppose, really.
Your gaydar was good.
Yeah, yeah. Even back then, when you weren't allowed to have a gaydar. So not long after that, maybe 12 or 18 months after going up and down to Drogheda, a group of us did have a chat about, I wonder what would the demand be in Dundalk? If this many people are travelling to Drogheda, what would the demand be like in Dundalk, you know?
Yeah.
And so we put an advertisement in a local paper. We booked a room in a local, it was actually a kind of a holistic centre at the time. It was called the Milano Centre, and it was here in Roden Place, 5 doors up from where we're sitting now. And there was a woman who ran it, and we asked, could we rent a room there? And she said yes. She was very obliging, and we rented a room, and we held our night. We put our little advertisement in the paper, in the local paper, and one newspaper refused to take it and the other took it. And on the night, when we walked in, there wasn't even standing room, only in the room.
Wow.
And it was amazing that got in and going, holy, there was loads and loads of people. And so then we used to meet once a month, and we'd have the GCN, the Gay Community News, and it was a beautiful newspaper at that time. And it was like, bearing in mind, there was no internet, there was no mobile phones, there was no checking up something. This was when you waited on this monthly newspaper, free newspaper, to come in your door in a brown paper envelope. And all of a sudden, you were up to date on what was going on in the LGBT world, and what events were on, and if there was a dance on or a disco or an event in Dublin, mainly in Dublin, some in Cork and places like that. But so we used to get the GCNs delivered to one of the houses of one of the guys who were part of our little group, who later became the committee and the founding members of Outcomers. And we used to get like a bundle of GCNs delivered to his house, and then we'd take them up and we'd have them as the free newspaper on the night, and we'd have a cup of tea and a French fancy or a nice biscuit, and we'd chat and talk about, and you know, it was great because like you went to that on a Thursday night and you went back to your straight life when you walked out that door. You never mentioned LGBT. Well, of course we didn't. We honestly, it was gay and lesbian really back then, and you would deal and you spoke to other people who were part of the lesbian and gay community, I suppose, and you chatted with them. And then when you walked out that door, you put all that away until next month when you went back to it, because nobody was out at work, nobody was out at home. So it was kind of under the spell of darkness. You went into this meeting and you went up the stairs and went, and you chatted in there, and it was all gay talk, and you were reading your magazine. Loads of people who couldn't take that home with them, who would have a read of it and leave it there, and then chat about something about gay, maybe talking about, would we do something, would we have an event, would we, you know, and then everybody would go back out the door and then come back a month later and carry on as if nothing had ever happened. And so we did that for a while. And then an advertisement appeared in the local newspaper that said, if you are a member of a community who straddle the border, and who would be who would facilitate both sides of the church, if you like, Protestant and Catholic people, we would like to hear from you. And somebody brought the advertisement in, because when we were meeting in the Imlanu, we had a lot of people that came from South Armagh, Newry, Cross, all along there. The interesting thing was, you walked into that room, nobody said, what colour were you? What was your church? You know, it wasn't asked. We were all there for one thing. I always describe it as like there could have been a British soldier, an IRA man, a Protestant, a Free Presbyterian, a Catholic, all sitting drinking tea together. But what we were talking about had nothing to do with any of that.
Wow.
It was all about our lives as people. Do you have a boyfriend? Are you looking for a boyfriend? Have you a girlfriend? When did you know? Did you tell anybody? All the human interest stuff came out, and never really your politics or your colour or your faith. Nothing like that really came out. It was really about being part of a community of people, same-sex people.
And being seen in a way that you're not used to being seen, or
And
the way you want to be seen.
absolutely, and having the opportunity to talk about that.
Yes.
So it was powerful. It was powerful. And we did meet all of the above criteria when the newspaper piece came out. We were going, yes, we have people that come from across the border. We are sure we have both the nominations, although it had never been asked.
Yeah.
But we were sure that not everybody that was coming was from the one side of the divide, if you like. So it was the special program for peace and reconciliation, because the peace process had really just started. And so we wrote a letter and we said, we're this group that meets in Dundalk, and we have this group, and LGBT people, and they've come from both sides. So the whole 9 yards. And two of their assessors came out and met us. And they met us at one of the groups and they went, yeah, absolutely, this fits the bill.
Wow.
And if you are this group and if you meet these particular points, we can give you funding. So we were assigned a woman who would help us with the application. This was all new to us. We had never done anything. We actually had a Protestant minister who was part of the group, who had a little bit of experience in this side, and we had 2 or 3 businessmen and people like that who could write the stuff. But we had never been in these were all, like, say, corporate, and had never been in this social side of it, applying for funding and grants and stuff like that. So anyway, we sat down with this woman, Marie Power was her name, from Cork, and she helped us put together an application. And we put in the applications at the time were like a book, and it was all handwritten. And like, when I think of it now, the questions really they were asking was, what was the impact of us coming together? What was the benefits of us coming together? And there were enormous benefits. For the first time, we were talking to people who had never spoken about this stuff before, who had never come out to anybody, nobody knew about. And it was like this relief.
Yeah.
And it was really, really powerful. And it was weekly new people were coming along.
Wow.
Every time, or monthly as it was, because it was monthly, we had the meetings. But every time we went back, there was new people. There was extra people. There was more people. And we were talking about, will we go every week? Will we go every fortnight? Because just the interest was just exploding. And when I'm talking in terms of numbers, I suppose we were talking probably about 60 or 70 people.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we applied. And in 1996, we were awarded £75,000
My God.
to open a community centre in Dundalk and to put a helpline in it. And so it was a cross-border programme. So we were working with Cara Friend. And the guys in Cara Friend, we did all our helpline training down in Derry. And we all learned, we had to develop a little committee and all of this kind of stuff, and get trained up on how to work in a community centre, and how to work on a helpline, and all of this kind of stuff. And we did it, and we had all of that done, and we couldn't get a place to open, or nobody would give us a building back then, because of what we were. And we knocked many's a door. And I have a lovely story about that a gay guy met me on the town one night, and he said to me, to ask you something, are you holding gay walking tours of Dundalk? And he said, I see you on a regular basis with some man who happened to be an auctioneer out in front, and a whole crowd of gays come and walking behind him. Gay walking tours. He said, no, we're looking for a premises. And it was an auctioneer who was helping us find a premises. So we struggled, and then came the crunch, because the Peace and Reconciliation were going to take back the money because we hadn't spent it.
Right, yeah.
And so we had one last ditch attempt, and it was a basement in 8 Roden Place, Dundalk. And I was against it, because it was a basement and all the stuff you think about when you think about a basement and gay. And I was going, no, we can't go into a basement. We can't go into a basement. And they were going, well, we're going to lose the funding. So we went down and we had a look at the basement, and it was a basement. And I said, well, I suppose if we can paint it bright pink and blue and yellows and try to lift it a bit, I'll agree to it. So we all agreed, and we signed a lease, €700 a month, £700 a month for our building. And maybe it was 650 because I think there was one rent increase in all the years we were there.
Oh, wow.
By £50. And we signed a lease, and he let us, he was a gorgeous man, his name was Vincent, and he let us knock walls and make the room bigger once we put in the proper stuff, like the right joists and stuff like that. And we painted it. The meeting room, the drop-in room was yellow, luminous yellow. And the library was bright blue and orange. The office was orange, and the hallway on the way in was orange, and it was really bright.
Yeah.
And so it didn't give you the dark sense of where you were going into this dark place, you know. And we got it all set up. We got all our training. We got our helpline in, got our phone lines in. We had a very interesting time meeting all these different people and saying, what is this anyway? And we'd say, well, it's going to be a lesbian and gay centre. Oh, Jesus. You know, well, very interesting how many of them just went, right, okay, you know, the man that come to put in the electricity and to put in the phone lines and things like that. Well, kind of go, okay, whatever you say, you know.
Yeah.
So it was a sign of a change in Ireland.
Yeah.
And we didn't know how far it was going to change, but it was definitely a sign of a change in Ireland.
Okay.
And yes, so we got in. And then the big discussion about we were going to have an official opening, who we were going to ask to do official opening.
Mm-hmm.
So we invited two very important people to open our building. And on the 28th of March, 1998, David Norris and Jeff Dudgeon officially opened our building.
Wow.
So David Norris was the man responsible for the decriminalisation for taking Europe to court, or Ireland to court, to the European court, to get equal rights for LGBT people. And Jeff Dudgeon did it in the north of Ireland.
That's amazing.
And so those two guys officially opened our building to show the cross-border, the cross-community. And we had a wonderful event the day of our launch here. And the place was full of politicians and of priests and of parents and of people community people and activists, and very few LGBT people, if you think of it, because a lot of people weren't out, you know, so it couldn't be seen.
Yeah.
But it was a superb event, and it kicked us off. And then we had different nights. Monday night was women's night, Tuesday night was men's night, Wednesday night young people, Thursday night we were closed, Friday night was a mixed night, Saturday night we were closed, and Sunday night was a mixed night. Thursday night was our headline. So it was closed to the public, but there was 2 volunteers in doing the headline on Thursday night, 8 to 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And every night we had something going on, except for Saturday night. I think Saturday nights we usually had a disco in the West Court or in the Fairways Hotel, so we had something going on all the time. And and the place grew, and the helpline was very interesting, because what people used to do was ring the helpline and say, I'd like to join that club. And we'd say, well, do you want to come down and meet us? Yeah. So we used to have to go to the Imperial Hotel and meet them in the Imperial Hotel, so we were sure they weren't going to try and kill us or burn us out of our building.
Gosh, yeah.
So we used to meet them away from the centre, so we didn't know where the centre was.
Yeah.
And then if 2 of us would meet them, and we'd have a newspaper under our arm and a red baseball hat, and that was the sign that we were in. And we used to meet in different coffee shops around the place, and you'd walk in and people going, over here. And so we
kind of like spies. Yes.
Yeah.
Abadabadoo.
Yeah, it was. And the secrecy in it. And so then they would say, yeah, like, I'd really like to go. So then we would kind of suss them out and say, yeah, okay, great. So Tuesday night, it's 8 Roden Place, blah, 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 in the basement of 8 Roden Place. So they would appear, just come down the stairs, ring the doorbell, and somebody let you in. So we'd a wee glass door with a little rainbow on it. And so we could see who was coming in. And the service users grew, and that is how It was word of mouth. It was the oddly newspaper advertisement saying we were here. It was flyers we got printed and sent to doctor surgeries and to counsellors and psychotherapists.
Wonderful.
Some people put them out, some people don't them.
Of course.
But that's today, the same thing happens. Some people put them out, some people don't.
Mm.
So, and the service grew from there, from that little beginnings, but great beginnings. The parties, the celebrations, we had these things that used to happen on a regular basis, which was somebody would come in and say, I came out to my family. And we'd have a cake. Like I was a wee skinny one when I started. Let me say, I've had plenty of cakes. And then what we find is it was the empowerment of being with other people that made people go, this is okay. It's okay for me to be who I am.
Yeah.
And they'd go home and tell a parent or whoever it was, a work colleague or whatever. And then they'd come back the next week and go, I came out. And how did it go? And, oh, my mother said, I was near you. You were a great Hoover. I always knew, I knew you were gay. You can Hoover, man. All this kind of stuff. And we grew from strength to strength that way.
Yeah.
And we were all trained and all ready to meet with LGBT people as they came in the door. And the first night that the women were on was myself and my friend Colette, and we were in the room. We're all organised and ready for whoever the women would be that would come. And the doorbell rang, and it was a man, an older man, and he said, is this the gay centre? We said, yeah. And he said, I need to talk to somebody. I've got a daughter and son that are gay, and I want to know what I did wrong.
Oh, gosh.
And so we had a lovely chat with him. And we told him, you did nothing wrong. I would love if my dad was standing at this door wanting to know. So we had this kind of conversation with him. And we talked about how what you do is you just support your kids to be who your kids are and this, that, and the other. And we had a lovely night. And he left that night so full of pride for his kids and so full of confidence that he knew what he was going to say to his kid. And we were left standing in the room going, this isn't going to be about LGBT people. This is going to be about their families, their friends, their teachers, their counsellors, their priests. This is going to be about the community that we as lesbian and gay people live in, because we impact more lives than just our lives.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it was like siblings, brothers, sisters, moms and dads, and teachers and doctors and so on. And those were the people that followed, that came in the door time and time again. At one stage, we were having like open days on a regular, every 3 months or 4 months, we'd have an open day. There was so many people wanted to hear us talk and wanted to find out about us. And it was reciprocated. We got involved with the HSE, who started to fund us, and they were saying, we need access to men who are HIV positive for health reasons. This is the only place that we get these men. The other thing is, gay men and lesbian women didn't go to doctors and say they were gay. So how do we get information about cervical checks, about breast cancer, about heart disease, about diet, about all? And so what happened was this great partnership formed with the HSE, where we started having them in to talk to us. So we would provide the audience, and the audience would be a group of women. And there's a talk on tonight about breast cancer, or to talk on about cervical cancer or women's health or diet or stuff like that. And all the women would come along, and health workers would come along and talk to us. And they were going, this is the only way that we know we have direct contact with people who are part of this community, who did not traditionally go to a doctor and say, well, I'm drinking too much or I'm smoking like crazy, and the reason why I'm doing this stuff is I'm lesbian.
Yeah.
They were coming out to their doctors.
Yeah.
And so this was, these were really, really important talks and really important support systems at the time, that I suppose that we didn't really realize the power of them then. But as I look back on them over the years, I've gone, well, what a service we were providing.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a lot to take in. Well, I can hear you talking about it with such pride. And I normally ask, like, what makes you proud? And I'm guessing a lot of what you've just discussed makes you proud.
Being lesbian makes me very proud.
Yeah.
Being a lesbian woman makes me so proud.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. And if there is a second, I've said this so many times, if there's a second run around for us, don't take me back as a heterosexual. Kind of Springer Spaniel, but on into a lesbian or a lesbian. That's what I want to come back with. I think, yeah, I'm very, very proud to be part of this community. I'm very proud of the struggles. I'm very proud of how we hold ourselves in our dignity,
Yeah.
and how we challenge the stuff that needs to be challenged respectfully. We saw it through the marriage equality referendum, how we, but not just the marriage equality referendum, going right back then when there was enormous hate around us and there was an awful lot of misunderstanding about how we held ourselves.
Yeah.
And how we changed history. We changed history in the world. We changed history in Ireland, changed history in this little town that I was born and raised in, and that I went to school in, that, you know, all of that kind of stuff. This is the stuff we changed. And we made, I hope that I made one LGBT person's journey a wee bit easier to get to where they are today. And that's what makes me proud. I've so much stuff to be proud of, you know?
Oh, well, it's absolutely beautiful.
Oh,
Um, no, honestly, I could listen to you all day because it sounds like you and the centre and all of your colleagues, you've achieved so much. Which we're going to find out more about what you're doing currently at the moment in the second episode, and about how people can get involved and how they can reach out to you and so on. But before we wrap up on the first episode, I did actually I was wondering, how did the name Outcomers come about? Or
well, it literally, it was Drogheda Outcomers initially.
right,
So it was the guys in the Drogheda group that initially got the name out there. Then after the kind of the split, we went Dundalk Outcomers and they went Drogheda Outcomers. So then as this group grew and the Drogheda group kind of didn't continue, I think, or maybe it did for a year or two, but eventually we were just Dundalk Outcomers, and so the name kind of just stuck. And then it was in years later, and like I remember going to a thing in Armagh, in the Armagh City Hotel, and I was presenting at it, and somebody said, "But you're from Dundalk. You know, what would you know about gays in Armagh? And you're from Dundalk, you know." And I said, "Actually, what we probably need to do here is drop the Dundalk, because we're more than just Dundalk.
wow,
We're Outcomers."
that's so interesting.
So then we went just Outcomers. Sometimes it's strange that we say we're just Outcomers, and other groups kind of are Midlands or, you know, Southeast or Cork Pride or Dublin or whatever, and we're Outcomers.
So, is there other Outcomers threads
Not there's like a couple of years ago, Drogheda Outcomers came back, and so they used the word Outcomers. We partnered with them and we support them and they support us. So there is a Drogheda Outcomers. So there are other LGBT organisations around the country. Dundalk is the only one outside a major city.
Gotcha.
And there is only, I think, 5 solely funded LGBT. So we are funded to do work with LGBT people. So there are lots of other agencies around, like family resource centres, who get a bit of funding to support an LGBT group. Or there might be a youth group, for OIGA, Youth Work Ireland, that have a strand of their work that is LGBT. Our work is exclusively LGBT. We are funded to work with the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community.
Wonderful.
So it's slightly different. But we're the only one outside a major city. So we've got 2 in Cork. We've got Link and the Cork Gay Project in Cork. So they actually have separate organisations, the women and the men. Cork Gay Project is for men. Link is lesbians in Cork, and now they've changed their name a bit. But so Link was the women's organisation and the Gay Project was the men's. And then there's Outhouse in Dublin.
Yeah.
Which is an exclusively LGBT funded place. There's Galway have I can't remember the name. It's an Irish name, but Galway have one. So there's 2 in Cork, 1 in Galway, one in an outhouse in Dublin, and there is a project in Limerick, but again, it's not exclusively gay. It's HIV, it's gay, LGBT, HIV, and a few other health stuff built in, but it is predominantly an LGBT organisation. So there's very, very few LGBT organisations around the country, and we're the only one in existence outside a major city.
And you mentioned Car Fence in the north. Then do you still collaborate with them from time to time?
Well, we did a little LGBT youth exchange with Cara Friend 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some stuff in the pipeline now with Rainbow Project, and we've got some stuff in the pipeline with some of the smaller prides along the border that we hope will come to fruition. We're talking in terms of a few little partnerships for, please God, 2026, 27.
Great. So the future is a rainbow on the island, eh?
Oh God, aye.
Well, it is now, but even more rainbows.
More rainbows. We'll be blinded with the rainbows.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian. And thank you all to all of you for listening to the first episode of this. What did we decide to call it? Did we call it
Outcomers Craic.
Outcomers Craic? Yes.
Outcomers Craic.
Yeah. But yes, it certainly has been good crack so far. So, but we've got another episode's worth of it to come. So please do join us again in that which is coming soon. Keep an eye on your socials and make sure you are subscribed and following, whether it's on Spotify or YouTube. So until the next time, remember, stay proud.